Welcome to Parade Day in Philadelphia.
Yeah, baby.
Unfortunately, it's not for the basketball team, 54 games in. You don't get a parade for that, but when you win an NFL Super Bowl championship, you get a parade. And that's what we have here in the city of Philadelphia. It's fantastic, man. It's 2 times in 7 years. That
Feels
is great.
good, baby.
Feels
Feels good.
Welcome to the PHLY Sixers Podcast on a Friday, again, Parade Day in Philadelphia, presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Derek Bodner, Kyle Newbeck, I'm Devon Givens. Bree with us, all of you hanging out with us as well. We hope you are having a fantastic Parade Day. And when we talk about never ordinary, this could be ordinary for the Eagles, right? We can get used to this as they keep winning. You already have the quarterback and the wide receiver talking about, all right, that's enough. I've celebrated enough.
AJ not being satisfied is
right.
honestly like really on brand for a receiver. Just like
All right.
the marathon continues, baby.
And it's
Shout out
not just
Nipsey
him.
Hussle.
Devontae Smith also followed him up and was like, yeah, it's time. I'm back at work. And all of that. But they did have to do the parade today, so that was fantastic. But here we are, and it's a Friday. We haven't done one of these in a long time, folks, and we wanted to get one of these in on Parade Day, and that is have a Mailbag Friday for all of you Sixer nuts out there that are still hanging in there with 28 games remaining in the season. We're at the All-Star break. You get the festivities starting for All-Star Weekend tonight, which is – how do you feel about that?
All-Star's not for me. I'll say that. I think
It used to be.
When you're a kid, yeah, because it's like you think of, Tracy McGrady threw a alley-oop to himself off the backboard and dunked, and you remember, or Allen Iverson had the run in 01 with the East guys, but
Nate Robb had 38 attempts. Hey, that's a heck of a lot of stamina to show for that man. That stamina was impressive.
Andre Iguodala has never been robbed harder than he was in that moment. That was grand.
Sorry, he traded it in for a Finals MVP, so I guess it's worked out.
It did work out pretty good for him.
But yeah, All-Star Weekend at this point is catering to an audience that I am not a part of.
What about you?
I don't even know if it really caters well to that audience anymore, though. I don't think it's really popular.
And they keep trying to make changes because it's not as popular anymore.
I still like the three-point shootout. That's fun to watch because you can get some real tension in that. Outside of that, no. I mostly, and it probably impacts, like, our opinion of it's probably painted a little bit by the fact that, like, we could use a little bit of break. They've been playing 4 games a night for a long time. Like, I've got stuff around the house or stuff in my personal life I'd like to catch up on. But even still, like, no, it's a bad event to watch. It's a bad event to cover. I'm happy for the guys who get voted in. Like last year, I was happy for Tyrese to get his first one. I was happy when Joel made his first couple. Outside of that, outside of the recognition that comes along with it, I don't actually care about too much of the weekend.
It's kind of worn off to the point too. Even a year ago, where they had what's her name from the Liberty that was with the 3-point shootout, Sabrina Ionescu with Steph Curry, and they try to team up this year with Klay Thompson and Caitlin Clark. And Caitlin Clark was like, nah, I'm cool. So, and now I don't even think
Parade Day and we're talking about All-Star. Man, what a sad state of affairs.
It still is All-Star Weekend.
And they were talking about trying to recreate that this year, and they just announced yesterday that that wasn't going to happen. So it takes a little bit of the flair out too.
It's crazy. But guess what? We have a parade day here. We had a parade day here in Philadelphia. All of you people still going nuts out there. It's going to be a fantastic day throughout the city. No kids at school today. That was great. Shout out to Philadelphia overall for not having the kids go to school and have to worry about that with the parents. And shout out to all of you for a great parade day that is still ongoing. And we are right in the thick of it here down where we are with our offices. All right, let's get to the mailbags here on this Friday. To start off with the mailbag question, What's our first mailbag question of the day here as we begin things on this Friday? Bree, what do you have for us? First one from Patrick. Oh, hello, Patrick, with the underscore in between oh and hello. Not sure where we are with this, but what would need to happen for tanking to be a serious internal conversation?
It should already be happening, and frankly, they should be tanking. I think when you lose back-to-back to the Toronto Raptors and Brooklyn Nets, with one of those games featuring all three of your, I'm going to use air quotes on stars because of how we feel about Paul George at this point, but there is, to my mind, no justification to say we're going to keep going for it, right? At this point, we have reports from Shams Charania coming out saying Paul George is receiving some type of injection just to be able to play before these games, that he's dealing with a level of pain and issue with the hand that's out there. Joel Embiid is not moving well, has not played close to the standard that he needs to hit. Tyrese Maxey just suffered a knee contusion that knocked him out of their final game before the All-Star break. They are in a position where if they keep losing, you have these teams Portland has passed them, right? And they're a young team that they want to try to compete, right? It's not a team that they're going to shut guys down to try to, they want the developmental reps. So Portland's going to keep winning. I think Toronto's got a good chance to keep winning here, especially if Brandon Ingram gets on the floor and is healthy, and you keep getting games from Quickly and Barrett and some of these other guys, Grady Dick. That's another team that's mostly young guys that they'll continue to play hard every night. I don't see any reason at this point why the Sixers would keep trying to be Sisyphus, pushing the boulder up the hill and the rock just falling over them over and over again, when you could potentially get as high as the 5th slot in the lottery, maybe more realistically 6th, by just shutting these guys down and saying, we're going to live to fight another day, and we're going to admit that this season was a failure. I don't know if it's about pride. I don't know if it's about convincing guys to sit down, but you got to do it. I think that the moment has come. And if it hasn't, what are you guys looking at?
Yeah. If the question is what will it take for the organization to do that, I think they are going to be stubborn about this. I think it probably takes bad news on Joel Embiid and not real hope that, because I think if you're looking at it of what can they gain, sure, I'm sure Daryl and the front office are thinking about that 10th play-in spot. From my perspective, one of the real things you can gain is, well, maybe Joel Embiid can get back into some kind of rhythm, gain a little bit of knowledge of what he can do with that knee, of how he can manage the knee, maybe a little bit of hope that next season can be better from that regard. But if something happens with Joe, you lose all of that. That's when I think the organization probably pivots. I'm with Kyle. After those last 2 games, when you can't beat Toronto or Brooklyn, what are we doing here? I'm 100% on board. And I think there are some downsides. Like I said, I do think Joel Embiid's got to sort of, I think a lot of people view it as Joel Embiid is, if you shut him down, he will be better prepared for next season. I'm not convinced that's the case. I think he does have to get. There
are some more questions related to that. I think that's a very important point that you and I have talked about a lot.
But I think there's something to be gained for Joel Embiid trying to play through that, getting accustomed to it, building up what he needs to build up, both in terms of tolerance and maybe some of the supporting area of the body to be able to play on that. But it's just not worth more than the potential top 5 pick in this year's draft. We're at that point. Also, for my own sanity, I need to dream about Cooper Flagg. I can't do that if they don't have a draft.
Or VJ Edgecombe or Dylan Harper.
If I'm going to dream, I'm going right to the top.
Hey, listen, I get it. I'm just saying, there are plenty of guys who I'd be happy to watch.
That'll get us right through June too, man. Nice conversation about that. And here's why I'll jump in on it with the conversation, is just because if their belief is looking at it and saying that their talent level is good enough to do what the Miami Heat did a few years back, where they would get into the play-in tournament, make their run, get to the Eastern Conference Finals or the NBA Finals, you're not them. Those guys were mostly healthy as they got into the postseason. You're dealing with a player that has a torn tendon in his finger right now that is it's going to be a problem, like a big problem. Kyle's talking about getting shot up before games, the last 4 or 5 games, just to get out there and play. Joel Embiid, you're taking a gamble on guessing if he can get through the play-in, which is going to be a big time game, because if that other team is Toronto or Brooklyn or Chicago, whoever it is, and they really want to just win that basketball game, they're going to go all out. So Joel Embiid is going to have to play 36, 37 minutes, maybe even 40 minutes, if that's going to be a close game, to try to get that one to move to the next game. And then we don't even know if you're going to be 7, 8, 9, 10, where you're going to have to play 2 games versus the 1 as the 7 seed. And like you did a year ago to get into the postseason. We don't know. And again, you're not the Miami Heat where they were essentially healthy by the end of the season for them to make that type of run to get into that spot, to play 4 rounds or to play 3 rounds, and for it to be that impactful to have that kind of difference. So there's a lot of things there that have to go your way. And while the other teams, as Kyle talked about, where you looked at Toronto and Brooklyn and even Chicago, where we think they're going to want to lose, the organization.
I mean, Chicago's trying. They just traded away their star player and lost 4 in a row. Unfortunately, the Sixers can't make up any ground on them right now.
And the players are not going to be out there trying to tank it themselves. They want jobs. They want to keep their job. Portland, when you talk about them, Chauncey Billups, if he wants to keep that job, he has these guys playing pretty well. They're in a totally different spot. So the Sixers are in a jam here when it comes to that. And as you mentioned, Derek, it's going to be a lot of stubbornness until we heard it a week ago today. Wasn't it a week ago today with that press conference after the trade deadline?
Cleveland
with Daryl
don't want
Morey?
to play us.
Exactly. People don't want the Cleveland Cavaliers better watch out. Okay, cool. They better watch out. They might get rid of you in 4 or 5 games in that first round matchup.
How about you worry
Cleveland in 3 at this point.
How about you worry about beating the Brooklyn Nets before you talk about beating Cleveland?
Exactly. So you're not the Miami Heat in this spot. At least, yes, we have 28 games to find out what you look like going into that potentially. But right now, as I view the 76ers, you are not built like that to get through a play-in and then make the run that they did to get to the conference finals and then the NBA finals.
I need John Taffer to come through the building. I'm shutting this whole thing down.
Yeah.
Shut up, our rescue.
Shut it down. So what will it take? Probably Joel Embiid to officially be ruled out for them to do that.
Or at least a couple of weeks.
For a couple of weeks to say so. All right, great question, though. We appreciate it. Let's get to our very next one here in the Mailbag Friday as we keep the conversation flowing. A lot of questions coming in via social media. Brian Hart, PR. What up, Brian? What's the vibe in the locker room these days, Kyle and Derek? Because I haven't been in there. These guys have been. Is this a group that sincerely thinks they can come together, land a playoff spot, and compete in the postseason? Or are they showing signs that they've concluded this just isn't their year? Thanks for the question, Brian.
I would say there's 2 sides of it. It's what they're saying versus what they're showing on the floor, right? And we can all see what they're showing on the floor, which is a lack of commitment to defense, complete disorganization, and no real, other than Maxey, guy putting the hand up and saying, we need to get this steered in the right direction. I think broadly what you're seeing on the floor is not total apathy, but you're getting closer and closer to that type of designation. Off the floor, you hear the right things, like Joel praising the young guys for fighting, Paul George saying, hey, we need to play with desperation and yada, yada, yada. The vibe has not matched, or the vibe and the quotes have not matched what we're seeing on the floor. And to me, and to everyone, I would think, actions speak a lot louder than words.
Yeah, and it's also tough because, we have not covered Paul for very long, and Paul certainly has a laid-back persona. Mm-hmm. So you could read into that when that's probably just his natural state of being. I would also just say, I think for the most part, when you talk about players who are this, at this level, or at least have been at that level throughout their career, yeah, they probably believe if they get on the floor and are healthy in the playoffs, they have a chance. Because when you get to that level, you have that kind of confidence. A lot of times it's a prerequisite to have that kind of success. So yes, I think they probably will believe it. Certainly, I think you can make the case that there is a lot of frustration being shown, whether that is people around the team, people in the locker room. Tyrese has talked openly about how frustrating losing was. Yeah. He seems like he's rounded a corner. I think Joel Embiid is frustrated probably more for the injury things than anything else, but I think there's frustration coming from that injury and not healing as quickly as he hoped. I think there's I'm sure Paul didn't exactly sign here thinking they were going to be 20 and 34. So I think there's frustration. I wouldn't go as far as to say that they have quit on the season or that they don't believe in themselves. But like Kyle said, when you start talking about actions and the way that they have played, they have not played anywhere near inspiring defense over the last couple of weeks.
And I think once you get past the players, the vibe is, I would call it exasperated.
Yeah.
I think it's just like a level of disbelief that so many things could go wrong.
Yeah.
It's like the meme that we had on the PHLY _Sixers account where Ben Affleck is standing there with the cigarette.
Yeah, I feel every game.
That's just how, it's like here we go again. And it's the result of what the game was. Here we go again, or in game, what was transpiring in the moment where the same mistakes are happening over and over and over again. It's Groundhog Day over and over and over again for this basketball team, of the issues with the offensive rebounding, the poor defense, outside of the 4-game stretch or even the 6-game stretch, because when they won the 4 and then they lost to Boston and Denver, they still played well and they gave that effort. But it's Groundhog Day for this basketball team over and over again. So I would imagine that it's just the frustration is they're being pros about it and how they're handling and what they're saying to you guys in the locker room. But you know that it's really bothering them, especially with them, with the expectation of what the season was supposed to be.
Right. They feel that a lot more than we do, and a lot more, and they know the people that are at home and watching.
And even though we were at training camp, you also heard what the guys were saying. So you heard it just like we heard it. They were really, really high on what this could really be this season and what this could potentially be. So you know the frustration is there from what this season has turned out so far at 20 and 54 games in at the All-Star break. All right, we're going to take a break, come back. Thank you again, Brian, for that question. We'll come back. We'll get to some more as we hang out with you here on this Friday, Parade Friday. I'm a little jealous of our PHLY Eagles team. They get to cover a championship team. It's what we look forward to, seeing it ourselves.
One day, maybe.
But we haven't gotten there yet, even though they've been contenders for many, many years. We'll come back. We'll get to our next question and questions here on the Mailbag Friday on the PHLY Sixers Podcast, presented by Bet365.
And gang, I'm sure a lot of you out at the parade today were like, boy, my cell phone service isn't great. Everybody's trying to make phone calls, send texts, get in touch with one of the 1 million+ people that were probably out on the streets of Philadelphia today. Mint Mobile and my personal friend, Ryan Reynolds, is here to help you out. Traditional big wireless carriers love to keep your money, and they love to give you substandard service. And after years of overpaying for my cell phone, I finally got fed up with bogus fees, high wireless bills, and it ends up costing you more in the long run. Mint Mobile is here to help you. Say goodbye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile's here to rescue you with a premium wireless plan, and they start at $15 a month. Every one of those plans come with high-speed data, unlimited talk and text, delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan. You can bring your own phone number, all your existing contacts, ditch your overpriced wireless, and get 3 months of premium wireless service from Mint Mobile for $15 a month. So if you like your money and keeping that money to spend it on other fun things, Mint Mobile is the place to be. Shop plans at mintmobile.com/Sixers. That's mintmobile.com/Sixers. Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, 5 GB plan required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customer offer for the first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available, taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details.
Kyle sound like Busta Rhymes there, running through that disclaimer.
Doing my best.
Doing the best.
Mintmobile.com/Sixers, baby.
All right, and with that phone, you know what you can do to add to your phone? You can download that Bet365 app right there on your phone. Download the app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365 with over 90 million users worldwide and early payouts across all 4 of the major sports. You have it right here with the pioneered live in-game betting from Bet365 to adjust your wagering. Wow. You know, All-Star break is this weekend. You can jump in on the 3-point contest. You can vote on the slam dunk contest. the skills competition, the whatever it's called, the rookie sophomore game, whatever it's called now, the futures game. You can get in on that, and certainly on Sunday with the big game, the All-Star game, go with the points over because they always shatter that number. And if you want to do that again with the great people here at Bet365. Download the app once again. And when you do, use code PHLY365 when you sign out. The early payout offer in the NHL. 3-goal lead when your team is up, gain a 3-goal lead, get the instant payout there. And basketball, you get a 20-point advantage there, 20-point lead in hoops for that early payout offer if you're a winner. Instant payout, straight bets, parlay selections marked as winners in both of those particular leagues. Football will be back in the fall, so don't worry about that. And some breaking news from Bet365. You can new customers can get $100 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. Sign up. Use the code PHLY365, deposit $10, place a bet for $5 to get $100 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. You hear that? Wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on spread, totals, player props, futures. Baseball is almost here. Futures and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 plus and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers Podcast on Parade Friday, presented by Bet365. And with the Parade Friday, you didn't have your gear from PHLY. It didn't get to you fast enough. But we want to tell you about the Gold Standard Collection after your football team won the Super Bowl. Bree is the best. She had this ready. I was supposed to do this at the top of the show, everybody. It's my bad. That's why the production excellence is Brianna. Gold Standard Collection. Look at those 5 shirts right there. 3 Kelly green, 2 in the black right there, and they are phenomenal. Get them at the store.allcitynetwork.com. Our favorite is the Kelly green with the 2 trophies that says birds with the 2 trophies right there. After they won the Super Bowl on that Sunday, you had Jamie, Rich, Vinny, and Fran all with the World Bleeping Champion shirts on. So if you want to see what they look like on your person, check out those guys as they were modeling them. And Julia made an appearance also with her shirt on camera. Go get them, store.allcitynetwork.com. If you didn't have it in enough time for the parade today, make sure you, though, go and get it now so you can represent.
Wear it with pride the rest of the year and for a long time moving forward. They can never take those championships away.
Cannot. 2 times Super Bowl champions for the Birds. Beautiful shirts.
It is.
I like the shirts.
Yeah.
I got some ideas for those shirts, too.
Can't wait to see the Sixers championship shirt we make.
Yeah.
In 2075.
Preseason championship?
They might get an in-season
tournament.
Yeah.
Tournament?
They have a
Hey,
chance.
Vegas, we'll go to the Sphere.
That's
By the way,
a goal.
Did you see who's going to be at the Sphere when we're there in the summer?
Who?
I don't think this is in the Devon or Derek or, frankly, Kyle wheelhouse. The Backstreet Boys.
Okay.
They're the residents of the Sphere when we'll be there for Summer League.
I can do it. My cousin that you guys met.
Yeah.
She was a huge Backstreet Boys.
Well, maybe we'll end up there.
And
I don't know. I'll get down to some everybody.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't have
huge
too many.
Backstreet Boys. I remember she has photos with them. Like,
Okay.
because of the Boston connection.
We'll wait for the reviews.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll see if we can make it happen.
Yeah, Backstreet Boys. All right. Maybe they can put us in the commercial or something. They've been making a resurgence, so maybe we'll see that. All right, let's get back to the mailbag questions here on this Mailbag Friday, Parade Friday here in Philadelphia, City of Champions, not the basketball team. Gray, awesome phone. Thank you, Gray. My only question is, why was everyone so against tanking early in the season when we sucked, but thinks that we can somehow tank now when we won too many games and we won't keep our pick? Why was, quote, tank when we can realistically get a top 2 pick and, quote, a plan everyone hated?
Won too many games. They're 20-34, brother. They haven't won too many anything.
But in Gray's defense, at one point when we talked about it, they went on one of those 4-game streaks, and then they had that 9-3 month of December.
Yeah, they won 10 out of 13 or something like that. Yeah.
Also, I think it's a lot of what we have said is not they shouldn't tank. It's more about
with the other teams.
Why they're not going to because there are so many balls in the air. And I think part of the answer to the question is, well, we have more information now, right? They've gotten more available Paul George for a while anyway, healthier Paul George. Joel Embiid has not played. And the deeper you get into a year and it's like, hey, Joel's only played 17 games, then you can say the cavalry's not coming, right? He's not coming to save the team. He's not been good enough. He's not been healthy enough to lift this team up and realistically give them a contention shot. I mean, their deadline plan was ducking the tax, right? Like they did get younger and
they
whatever.
got flexibility.
But they ducked the tax.
No,
that was their major goal of the trade deadline.
The quote marks were supposed to be that I'm not serious.
Listen, I read you loud and clear. I know it. So I think it's silly to say, well, why are more people on board now? Because things have materially changed and we have more information to say there is no reason to hope. And the Sixers should be able to see that as well.
Two things. There's a difference between the season started poorly and the season is poorly. Like teams, when they get 55 games into a season, 54 games into a season, have a different mindset than when they were 20 games in. Yes. Like there was still hope, especially with the way December played out and they won all those games. There was hope that you would get these three back on the floor and you'd be able to find some kind of rhythm. Well, that hope is gone. So of course people's perspective changes. The other thing, like he was talking about, like, well, when we had a chance to get a top 2 pick, the difference between like the 5th worst record and the worst record in the league, the worst record in the league has a 27% chance of getting a top 2 pick. The 5th worst record still has a 21% chance of getting a top 2 pick. You have not actually lost. You will not get the 2nd worst record. That is true. You have not actually lost that much in terms of your
odds. And they probably
odds.
weren't getting that 2nd worst record regardless.
No. Have you seen New Orleans? They've lost 10 in a row.
And the Hornets
Utah
are 13 and 39. Like
you're not getting that.
With Brandon Miller's out for the year, they can shut LaMelo Ball down. There's like a million
now,
teams that are the really bad teams. You were probably not going to catch regardless.
Now, where I can say is you probably had a better chance of getting the 5th worst record if you would have committed earlier than you do now. Like you still have to fight for Toronto, fight with Brooklyn. You could have put some ground in between you and them, but they actually, if they do commit to it now and truly commit to it, their odds haven't actually changed all that much.
Yeah, well, all those teams stink, and the Sixers are in that mix. And look, the Sixers have not tried to lose, but they have. They organically just lost because they're not good.
There is no way that a team that just spent $500 million on salaries in the summer, or at least committed to $500 million of salaries in the summer, is going to go like, oh, well, we hit a tough 15-game stretch to start the season. Let's shut everyone down. That's just not. And by the way, who knows how everyone from Tyrese Maxey to everyone else in the organization would have reacted to that. It was too early.
So I was about to say, think about where you were at early December, late November. At that point, Jared McCain is still out there, right? Like, do you want to subject Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain, who we don't know is going to get hurt at that point, to getting their heads kicked in every night? Like that's not fair to them, right? To ask them to go through a whole season where it's like, well, we just gave up at basically Thanksgiving or the start of December. That was and is not realistic. And so I get why they didn't at the time, but they got to have the come to Jesus moment now.
Yeah, and when you guys talked about before with Portland winning enough games where they're starting to play a lot better, Brooklyn and Toronto right there in the mix with the Sixers, things could go your way, Gray, where they just naturally fall down in that area of being in the mix for one of those picks. Boy, they're going to have to get lucky. Do the Sixers have that kind of luck to be able to get one of those top 6 picks to keep that pick? We're going to find out if it happens overall.
If there's one thing that I would use to describe this organization, it's lucky.
Very true. They got lucky and got Paul George in the summer.
Well, they did, and they got lucky, and Tyrese Maxey fell, and whatever. You're being sarcastic. I was trying to. Yeah, a little bit. You're right.
A little bit. All right, let's get to the next question here on Mailbag Friday. Warren Croxton. Who are some of the underrated guys you have talked to on the beat? Can be current or older guys who are, regardless of status, who give
in terms of like other beat writers.
Answers.
You want us to give us
no players? I think he's talking about like guys we've covered.
Oh, okay.
Good conversationalists.
Yeah, like
the ones that I don't know that they're underrated. I think it's the type of guy you'd expect. Like Danny Green was someone I really enjoyed covering because he he had a lot of insight on what it takes to win at the highest levels. Well spoken. He's super thoughtful. He's always generally available to us. Like I enjoyed talking to him quite a bit, and also just like a pleasant guy. Like even the thing that I remember that sticks out to me a ton. The last time we talked to him, after he suffered that injury, Joel fell on top of him in the playoffs, and he suffers a devastating knee injury. He shows up to exit interviews and is still like, "Hey guys, how are you?" Like put a good face on and was very thoughtful with his answers, even in that scenario that was like you're staring down the barrel of your career basically. And so he was a guy I really enjoyed. I enjoyed covering JJ for a lot of similar reasons. There were a lot of guys.
I thought for sure you were going D House. I thought for sure.
Well, so D House he's not. They're different types, right? Like D House is just like he's liable to say some wild stuff at any time, or like also yell about fast food.
Any man who loves Dr. Pepper that much, if you can take something so small and make it such a core part of your personality, I appreciate that.
I think, Derek, in the time that we've covered the team, and you've been in the locker room a little bit longer than I have. I'm older,
yes.
Generally, we've been pretty fortunate with like the types of guys that have been on the team. There have been very few that are like bad dudes. Like Niang was another good one. He was funny. He's willing to. Yeah. He was frankly willing to talk a lot. Yabu is a guy this year that I think has made himself super available and is very gracious with. So I don't have a lot of complaints. Like Joel's been great to cover. The injuries are not great, but he's very open and honest and all things that make for a good guy to cover.
The first one that came to mind, you mentioned him, was JJ. Just because he was so good at like meeting you at the level of your question, and I appreciate that was so much. Like if you asked him a really good question that you clearly thought about, and you clearly watched the game and know what you're talking about, he would give you a 5 to 7 minute answer going into all the detail you could possibly want. If it was in the middle of a playoff series and you were like, "What do you got to do to win the next game?" He's like, "I don't know, man. We got to score more points at him." And like he would just walk away. It was fantastic. I loved covering him. We did have some flare-ups with him, specifically around the Markelle stuff. But even after that, that was an isolated incident. He was, gracious towards us. And like I said, I think
that was him being a protective teammate.
Yeah.
I don't have any issue
that wasn't
with
against
that.
media or us at all. Yeah. That was him doing his role as a teammate, 100%. And I respect that, even if we were on the other end of it. But he was. I think he really respected people who, media members who worked hard and tried to really get into the weeds of the game. And he responded to that with really good, thoughtful answers that, showed what he would become as an analyst and as a coach later on.
I had some good ones. George is one. That's easy. George Niang.
Hysterical. I've quite a few quotes from George I would love to share, but I cannot.
I've gotten to know George pretty well, too. I saw him in the summer, too. He came back in the area. Got to hang out with him a little bit. TJ McConnell was great when he was here.
Yeah. I will never forget the way he looked when he found out he made the team for the first time. I've never seen somebody so happy.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Robert Covington was another really fun one. Yeah. For the first go around here. I didn't see him much when he came back the second time in the trade. All that much. Yeah. So that's one. A fun one. Mo Spates was a fun one.
Easy.
Back in the day, he was a good one.
LOL Doug Collins.
Mo Spates was a good one. And even now, even though I'm not around the team as much as these guys are now, Ricky just kind of also just being Ricky himself. But when we had a chance to sit down with him a year ago with our first interview and then seeing him at training camp and stuff, and he's still, the media day, he's still the same good guy and fun conversation that he is. So a lot of those guys. And Tyrese was always good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say one more.
And even Tobias, even though Tobias took a lot of heat and all that stuff.
He always stood up and faced the music.
Yeah,
and
stood there.
I respect that a lot about him. Yep. There's one more role player that I'll throw in where eventually he became a little too in on the joke. But Mike Scott. Mike Scott was a guy that if there was a fight, if there was a big moment, if someone had a huge game, he was someone you could go to, and very reliably, he would have an incredible one-liner about whatever happened and like lean too hard into it at a certain point. But for the first, I'd say year and a half, I really enjoyed that.
What was your first team?
Ben's rookie year. Well, the first year he played, which people argue about.
But I know what you mean.
2017-18. So it was JJ and all that. I was covering the team before then, but more from afar,
Right.
and not
Right.
at the games in the locker room all the time.
What was yours?
20. First game probably would have been 2010.
Mine,
Like certainly during the Doug Collins era.
Yeah, mine was February of 2008. That was my first game, and that was the Mo Cheeks.
It's got me beat by quite a bit.
That was the Mo Cheeks run, and we can go back to guys back then, but just keeping it more, more recent.
Doug was great, but that's in part because Doug would just say something that would be off the wall.
Yeah,
He's just not that good, Derek. He's not that good.
But you know what?
We won't mention who he was talking
just to
about.
kind of go back to them, but when we talk about guys are great now, but you can tell the difference when you bring up JJ of the players back then, Aaron McKee, those, Theo Ratliff, Dikembe Mutombo being around and all that type of stuff, and just a difference in experience. Yeah, I guess. As you talk about JJ being one of those guys too. Amir Johnson was fun too.
Amir was fun.
He was fun.
Yeah.
He was fun. All right, let's get to it.
I think I've told the Amir Johnson story I always think of is he's in the locker room one night talking about a great restaurant in Old City, Budokan. And we were in the middle of interviewing someone, and he just yells across the locker room, "Y'all going to Budokan?"
Good stuff, man. A lot of good guys in and out of this locker room. A lot of good guys in and out of the locker room. Great question, though. We appreciate it. Well, let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll get into more of these mailbag questions. Reminiscing about the locker room.
Shout out Budokan, by the way. You ever want to sponsor this show?
If you do ever sponsor the show, yes, we are calling you Budokan.
No, I will be respectful. I will never refer to it as that again because it ain't booty. It's delicious.
It's the PHLY Sixers podcast here on a Parade Friday, Celebration Friday, presented by Bet365. All right, you see the champs celebrating, and one of the guys in particular that I remember on Thursday from Media Day clean out locker room coverage was Landon Dickerson saying, the All-Pro, Pro Bowl guard, saying that he needs to have surgery in the offseason. So I know you have a great team there and you have a great staff, but if you need to, Landon, I got a number for you, and that's with our good people from Rothman Orthopedics. We know that you've been banged up, fighting through as the tough guy that you were to get through the championship game and then the big game, of course, to win the championship. You got those joints aching, those hands cramping, or you just flat out need surgery, man. Rothman, they have you covered. Research leading to new treatments and better outcomes. Each Rothman doc is laser focused on their specialty from knee, hip, spine, you name it. They have a team for each part of the body right here in your backyard in the Pennsylvania area, so you can cross over the defense. Line up again next season on the line and make sure that you keep your quarterback clean or clear those lanes for your running back to get through. Rothman Orthopedics, they specialize in you. Patients will find the full spectrum of orthopedic care at Rothman Orthopedics. Year over year, Rothman consistently performs among the highest volume of hip, knee, shoulder, spine, and ankle replacements in the country with over 60,000. And that's right there at Rothman. And it's not just the volume of 255,000 of new patients and consults that Rothman is most proud of, but instead it's their commitment to improving each of those patients' lives through their service and care, myself included. So Landon Dickerson, if you need another place to go to, send the Eagles my way. I'll give them the number. Rothman Orthopedics, specialized in orthopedics. And you visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more and make an appointment today.
And look, maybe you spent a little bit too much during the holiday season. Maybe you spent a little bit too much travel last week to head on down to New Orleans. No regrets, but you do now have to live with that decision. What if you could pay that debt off faster and do so with zero interest until 2026? TrueMark Financial is offering zero interest on balance transfers for 12 months, so all your payments can go toward reducing your balance, not just covering your interest. Transfer your existing balance from another institution to TrueMark Financial Visa credit card and take advantage of this amazing offer, but you have to hurry up because you have to apply by February 28th, 2025. Whether you're interested in earning rewards, cash back, or simply prefer a low rate for everyday purchases, with TrueMark Financial, you can choose a credit card that best fits your financial needs. Visit TrueMark.com/compare for full details and to apply today. TrueMark Financial, federally insured by the NCUA, equal opportunity lender. Terms and conditions apply. All loans are subject to approval. 3% balance transfer fees apply. Standard rates apply after the promotional rate.
Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers Podcast on Friday, Championship Friday once again. Go get those shirts, store.allcitynetwork.com. Get the Gold Standard collection. By the way, I wanted to say this too on the Friday. We forget because it's parade day. It's February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day to all the people out there, all the ladies.
Happy Valentine's Day, wifey.
There you go. Look at that. Happy Valentine's Day, all the ladies out there. And I hope you're having a great day. I know you are. You're celebrating the parade, and many, many ladies love the birds, and it's a great part of your relationship and all that stuff. Happy Valentine's Day. Hope you're having a great day, and just a great day continues throughout the evening. Get some good dinner.
That being said, treat every day like it's Valentine's Day.
No question.
Wow.
No question.
Loverboy Bodner over there.
No question. So
if you have to make up ground today, you've screwed up the other
that is
364
certainly true.
years.
It's a good motto. Yeah, it's a good motto. Yeah. Happy Valentine's Day, ladies out there. All right, let's get to the next question here, and let's see what we have. Brandon, at what point do the Sixers look to blow the whole thing up and look to move Joel? Wow. Hard to build the entire ecosystem around a player who can't play for more than 2 to 3 weeks. Thanks, Brandon. Appreciate the question.
Well, I'm 100% in agreement with the second part, which is why the answer to the first part is they don't have an opportunity to do that right now. That they would need to get a materially different Joel Embiid in the next, 2 months, right? Until the end of the season, to either have some confidence that they can build a coherent team and plan moving forward, or at the very least, rehab his value enough that you can move that contract and even think about trying to retool and rebuild on the fly, because right now they're in absolute no man's land. They can't win and they can't move them. You're just kind of stuck.
It is kind of catch-22 because on the one hand, if he's not playing well, then you can't trade him. But if he is playing well, then I don't think Daryl Morey is going to want to trade him.
Yeah.
So it's if you're going to ask what would have to happen for him to move on to Joel, first answer to that with any star is always Joel asks out. That's always just the way that this league works. The second, if there's a second scenario, to me it would be Joel comes back. He's a diminished player, but he's playing regularly. But Paul George has taken a step back. So even if you think Joel's taking a step back, but playing regularly, if that's not enough, if Joel Embiid playing at 80% of Joel and Paul George takes a massive step back, and you're like, well, even this is best case scenario, Joel's playing, but we're not close enough where we can compete for a title without him playing at an MVP level, that's when maybe you look to trade him. But I think that wouldn't happen until basically like February next year. I think.
What's that value look like now, though? I mean, even now, or to the example that you're giving, isn't that completely different from what we could have been talking about a year ago?
Oh, his value is never going to get back to that.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, you try to maybe move on to just get off of the situation and start over in a sense. But man, the value is so low now to where it was.
That's why you need him to come back and play semi-regularly. But like I said, I think that would be. I think almost no matter what happens, whether they're forced to or whether he plays just well enough to give them a little bit of hope, I do think, and look, this could all change. I do think they come back next year with him on the roster and give it one more chance. That's my hunch.
Is Tyrese Maxey the focal point now?
I mean, he almost has to be just because he's the only one playing.
The hub is going to be Joel because it's going to run through him. Mm-hmm. But the focal point in general, Tyrese Maxey going forward. Let's get to the next question here on this Mailbag Friday. Tons of questions coming through today for this episode, for the show. Clubber Lane, 02. Embiid said he will need off-season surgery. What's the strong counter argument to shutting him down now, getting the surgery taken care of now, and trying to protect their first-round pick?
Counter on it is that nobody else has really talked about surgery.
Yes. I think what Derek and I, in reporting on this, have tried to impress upon you good people at home is that this broadly is an issue that, as far as we know and can tell, that doctors who have looked at it have said his knee just needs to reacclimate, right? Without what he used to have in the knee with the meniscus and whatnot, that the knee will eventually, it'll improve, not because the meniscus comes back, but because the knee eventually adjusts to, this is what I have now. And so there will be things that will toughen up or harden. And like, so then you'll get less pain or less frequent pain, less frequent and less pronounced swelling. Like those things will just get better over time, and you won't have as many instances of like, oh, we got to shut them down for 10 days and ramp them up and do all that. And that's without surgery. And that there really isn't a surgery that's like a clear cut, do this minor thing or these couple minor things. And then he takes the summer off and comes back next summer. The surgical options that at least I'm aware of, are experimental stuff, right? Things that I think, like Lonzo Ball is the one that keeps getting thrown out there. Lonzo Ball missed like 2 years.
Yeah.
And Lonzo Ball has not been an effective basketball player this year. It's like, hasn't played a lot, hasn't played a ton of minutes.
And nowhere close to the size in terms of weight and height that Joel Embiid is.
And look, that's a surgery that who knows what the long term is for that, right? Like maybe you can play some high level games for a little bit, but how long is that able to hold up in 82 game a year plus playoffs type of sport?
Very unproven.
It's extremely unproven. So I don't think there's a surgical option out there that we know of, that I'm aware of, that is going to fix this.
I think there's a perception out there that Joel Embiid is just waiting for the season to end to get surgery that's already planned. From everything, and Kyle and I have done a lot of talking here over the last week, from everything we have heard, that is not the case. There has not been a surgery recommended that they are delaying. This is just a super frustrated athlete who's almost like hoping there is something out there. And look, I'm not saying that there's no chance, like maybe there's like a scope or something they can do just for diagnostic reasons when the season's over. But there is nothing that they are sitting here playing him through and delaying an inevitable surgery. That is not the sense that we get.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the maturity comes in of you talking about it on the last episode about don't say something like that out loud without you're stoking the flames.
You got to be careful with your words.
Exactly. You are, man. And which is why when we did the show right after that Milwaukee Bucks game, we started off with, it was an ugly loss again. Wait a minute. Lisa Salters is saying Joel Embiid.
I really had to go back and rewind it. It was completely threw me for
a loop. Unbelievable. So that's where the maturity comes in of don't say certain things, man. You got to watch how you say it, because 2 days ago, your president of basketball operations said, "Oh, we're good. We're going full steam ahead with Joel.
He might be symptom free in the future.
Might be, and whatever the future is, we don't know what that is. But don't say that. Don't say that. So there's that with Joel. And what does that look like, man? I mean, again, Tyrese Maxey is going to be the one out there. Hopefully, Paul George is healthy at that point next season. We're not dealing with the bone bruises the pinky is all healed up properly, and you're going to run things through those guys too. And we hope that they have a better plan next season with those two when Joel Embiid is not ready to go or not healthy enough or is on the floor, but still have to run your offense through them better than what we're seeing right now, because this has been a disappointment as a 1-2 punch with Maxey and George so far. Let's go to the next question here from Frap Cat. Cool. Why does the third option?
It's always a danger with doing mailbags from Twitter, by the way. You never know who's going to submit the question.
Frap Cat. Why does the third option, as we talk about Paul George, fail here? Is it Joel's fault? Is it the coach's fault? The person they choose? Harden, George. No matter, they come here and have career lows and look washed. Harden looks great in Los Angeles. Whose fault is this, or is it a curse?
James Harden looked pretty damn good here.
I don't think he failed here. I don't think Harden failed here.
I don't think so either.
And also,
he
some
had
of
his
the
moments.
Some of the third options would be like, I think JJ was a third option, and he had career years here. So I think it's very dependent on the player and the skill sets that they have.
12 was the third option.
Yeah, but he failed here because he wasn't that good.
He wasn't a third option. Yeah, he just wasn't. No, but yeah, when you talk about stars, James Harden was damn good. The 1 year where he thought he should have made the All-Star team, he didn't play enough games. That's why he didn't make the All-Star team. His numbers were good. And when you go to that Boston series that they should have won in 6, he had those two phenomenal games.
He won them 2 games.
He had phenomenal games, one of which was without Joel Embiid on the floor. So that him as a third option, he was technically the second option. Tyrese was the third option because he was still coming into his own.
And Tyrese was a great third option on that team.
Yeah, he helped uplift Tyrese Maxey and taught him a lot of things. So James Harden wasn't a bad third option. Paul George is just not off to a great start.
He basically in a season and a half was averaging 21 and 11.
Yeah.
If they were getting 21 and 11, other than turnovers, if you're getting 21 points and 11 anything from Paul George, sign on the dotted line for that 4 years, 212. Yeah. So like I disagree with the Harden part of it. I would say there are a lot of reasons. Tobias just wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
Paul, we're seeing he doesn't have the burst that he has used to have. He's not been used well by Nurse. It is a big adjustment period playing next to Embiid. I don't think it's as simple as like there's a magic bullet. It's just this. It's a combination of a bunch of things.
Yeah.
And James Harden, say what you want about him, that was the best point guard play you got next to Joel Embiid in Joel's career. Because even Tyrese Maxey, we call him a point guard, but he's still a scoring guard who's still learning how to point guard in this league. James Harden, he made things so much easier for Joel Embiid that even that alone, the 11 assists almost a game, just tremendous stuff from that guy. The problem was the extension that many people just did not want the Sixers to give him that long-term deal.
Turns out could have maxed him out and been in a better spot.
Yeah. I would say this. I felt, if you're talking about when I watched them in the regular season, a lot of people are nostalgic for, the Jimmy Butler team, or they should have beat the Hawks in 21. That regular season they had in 23, they won 54 games, and they had a bunch of games, high profile, like Christmas Day, national TV, or whatever, where they showed some real steel in tough moments, right? Like James Harden and George Niang going crazy at Madison Square Garden, leading a big comeback. Big fourth quarter comeback behind Joel Embiid and James Harden in Milwaukee in like a showcase type game.
Yeah.
They had a lot of big moments that year where I was like, this finally looks like I'm going into the playoffs thinking this is a team that can contend and win at the highest level. So I actually think that the disappointment of that second round loss for me is way, way higher than I would say the average person, because that was probably the most fun night to night I had watching a Sixers team while covering this team.
That was some fun stuff.
They were really good.
Those passes that he made, the fact that he can drive us crazy because he wouldn't catch and shoot. But that step back, boy, when he had that rolling, the defenses they had no clue how to step. You get and ones.
He
you get
needed that rhythm dribble to shoot. He just wouldn't do it.
But it was fun, and they racked up W's.
And look, Joel he won the MVP.
Yep.
It was incredible. So that was a season that I think got taken a bit for granted because of past failures. But they were a really damn good team, and it's a shame that in Game 7 they just laid a complete egg.
Man, Game 6,
especially after that game 5, 6, I was like, that's the breakthrough. This is the game they've needed to go in 2-2 on the road, and they just beat the hell out of those guys.
And then they came out and they were in a good position in Game 6, and then the fourth quarter happened.
That was a
low-scoring
stunning
game,
2-game turnaround after that Game 5, because they convincingly beat them in Boston. That was not a fluke.
And that Game 5, for me, we always talk about Game 1 and 4 for Harden, but Joel and Tyrese went nuts scoring, but James Harden had like 18 and 11 or 18 and 12, played a great floor game, didn't have to assert himself so much. And that's why in Game 6, when they were coming home, I was like, they're beating them. That guy had to do, he just coasted in that game and got, I think it was like 15 and 11, not 18 and 11, but 15 and 11 easy, and didn't have to exert any effort in that one. He just coasted. I'm like, all right, this guy is going to have his moment that this was his series, one that he hasn't had since Houston. And we know how it turned out. 12 took 3 shots, and he missed that bunny that James Harden.
Listen, all that said, Joel and James
remember
in Game
that corner
7
court
were
one that he passed that he gave 12 on that alley-oop and he missed the layup. And I was like, he's done for the rest of the night.
Joel and James in Game 7. I just wanted to.
I mean, Jason Tatum's still hitting pull-up threes.
That's
Anyway.
that 4-minute stretch in the Game 6 of he finally.
Anyway, what's the next question?
he finally got hot. He finally got hot, and they let him. They let him stick around. All right, let's get to the next question. Monster 22. Do you think Yabu wants to stay here? You guys are around him. I don't know.
I think with enough incentive financially, yes. I think he has enjoyed his time here. He's gotten a lot of minutes. He's been able to produce. He has been pretty open about, I saw a path to playing and actually getting an opportunity here. I would imagine that will persist moving forward. I would say yes, more than likely. He wants to stay.
I mean, look, the vast majority of sub-star unrestricted free agents go where they get the most money. That doesn't mean that like Yabu only cares about the money. It's just the way that the league works. There are going to be some exceptions. Maybe Yabu's an exception. We'll find out. I think Yabu has enjoyed it here. I think he has some trust with his teammates here. I think if the Sixers offer him the most money, he'll probably stay here. If they don't, then we'll find out. But yeah, I don't think there's anything preventing him from being here. It's just, do the Sixers offer the most money? Are the Sixers willing to hard cap themselves at that first apron? We'll find out. I will say, I think their moves at the deadline mostly signal that that's the path they're going down.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's probably a decent chance now.
You never have too much money, of course, when it comes to those guys. I do wonder how much he made
sacrificed
over.
a lot.
I was going to say, he didn't make,
relative.
He didn't make much money.
I was just curious how much
he has been like most of his prime's in the rearview mirror now. And they pay okay over in the ACB. They don't pay NBA money in the ACB. So like relative to other role players at this point in their career, he's made less. I wouldn't begrudge him at all if he's like, no, I need the most guaranteed money. Yeah.
He's earned it. He has absolutely earned it this season. Good to see him. It would be good to see him back with the full complement of players and him in the right role.
And maybe at another Birds game next year.
Maybe.
In the stands, not in the box or anything, just sitting there in the stands.
Man of the people.
Did you guys talk to him about that?
A little bit. He loved it. He had a great
with
time.
Anybody else, or
he was just a man about town?
Yeah, because I was looking for security. We know the security faces, so I'm looking for the security.
Yeah.
I'm like, where are the guys at? And I didn't see anybody.
I think he just went.
He just went.
That's great. I love it.
Yeah, and we didn't get a lot of photos or videos of other people bothering him, so I guess he just had a nice time at the Birds game. So yeah, football fan for life.
Luckily, not many
American
people are
football.
watching the Sixers right now, so it's easier to go under the radar.
That's true, but he is 6'8".
He is 6'8".
Standing, everybody
pretty big
standing
6'8"
up.
too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get to the final one here before we sign off here on this Friday. Songbird Rescue Cat. Which player or players on the Eagles' 53-man roster would be better at basketball than one or more of the Sixers' current
Zero.
players?
Yes.
None.
You see a lot of Cooper DeJean highlights out there.
Yeah, no, I'm sure he's a good basketball player.
Yeah, but just
Saquon, I know, played in basketball. He wasn't a great basketball. I think he was a role player even in high school, but he played basketball.
Yeah.
But they can be a great high school player and get absolutely smoked by the worst NBA player you've ever seen.
It's again, the thing I always point out to people when you make cross sport comparisons, you know who has the most reverence and respect for people playing other sports? The guys and gals who are playing those sports at the highest levels. Like there are people who take pot shots at the WNBA, for example. You know who doesn't? The NBA players, because they respect the skill and the talent and whatnot. And that, I would say, generally is a pretty universal feeling going from football to basketball to, they always are like, I wish I could have played this, or I wish I could have played that, with the inherent, meaning behind that being, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But then there are those select few who will go on a podcast or something and say, yeah, I can score 10 points in the NBA.
Yeah, they're wrong.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Here's what I always go back to when you think about like, oh, this guy was great in high school. TJ McConnell averaged 40 per game in high school. 40. TJ's not in the league because he can score. You don't think of him as a scorer. He averaged 40 a night.
That's an insane thing to think about, TJ scoring 40. Or like there are guys who have been multi-sport athletes, right? Who go and play in the NFL specifically. Like the two best examples are Antonio Gates and
Tony Gonzalez.
Julius Peppers, Tony Gonzalez, another one. But they were good basketball players, but they were not like, oh, that guy's the future of the league.
They did that
guy.
for fun there.
And also, those guys are NBA size, right? A lot of, like, if you're talking about Cooper DeJean, you put Cooper DeJean out there against NBA guys. It's like, brother, you're looking around, and like offensive linemen are really the only guys who are in the general NBA body type in terms of height. Yeah. And even then, they're like 350. Yeah. It's like you got to run up and down the floor. That's a little different than sprint, stop, sprint, stop.
Did you see that graphic?
On fast. Thank you. Go to allphly.com to finish the show off.
Did you see that graphic where they were comparing offensive linemen when the NFL started, and they were like 6'2", 240?
It's crazy.
To like what was it, like 6'4"?
6'4", like 360 for the Eagles.
Yeah.
During the Super Bowl, they showed that was the biggest average offensive lineman in history for the Eagles. It was what, 6'6" and like 330.
Some big dudes, man.
336, something like that. Those guys they honestly, offensive linemen and defensive linemen are some of the most impressive athletes on earth, period. The strength, the size. You're watching these guys pull for like an outside run, and they're sprinting down the field. And, let's say you get a 25-yard gain, you're lining right back up and going at it again, getting your head beat in. Like, those guys are just freaks in nature. So they're really fun to watch. It's part of why I enjoy the Eagles being a trenches team, right? You see these big old freaks running up and down the field every day.
Howie Roseman, man. We all everybody wants the skill player. That guy, interior, both sides of the football.
You got the skill players too, though.
Yeah, but he's got some really good linemen there, man.
Real quick, I went back. I might have overstated TJ a little bit. Here are his averages as a senior in high school. 34.2 points, 8.2 rebounds, 9.1 assists per game.
Almost a triple-double.
Another example would be, if you've ever seen what Patrick Beverley looks like at the NBA level, you're lucky if you're getting like 6 to 8 points out of him. I'm pretty sure in Chicago, which is a really competitive high school basketball environment,
he's like 40.
He was averaging 37 points a game. Pat Beverley.
Yeah.
That's not his thing, right? But at the high school level, absolute assassin.
You can't guard him. Can't guard him.
And I've told people, I grew up close to Matt Carroll and Pat Carroll. Pat played on the St. Joe's team with Jameer Nelson, Delonte West. Matt played at Notre Dame and was in the NBA for a little bit. I believe he's still down in North Carolina after finishing his career with the Bobcats. And Matt in the NBA, I could look up the exact stats, but Matt he's a specialist, right? He's a spot-up shooter predominantly. Played in the league for 9 years. His career average, 6.6 points a game. But in high school, that guy was like the Michael Jordan of Southeastern Pennsylvania, right? Like they took my high school, which was never all that good, although Michael B would argue at high school basketball, and they're going to state tournaments. They're playing in the tournament that Carmelo and LeBron played in Trenton, the Sovereign Bank shootout that those two played in the championship game. My high school played against a team from, it was either Harlem or the Bronx, and they played against a kid who could dunk on his tiptoes. And like they're playing in these big invitational tournaments when normally it's like, they're struggling to win any kind of games. Matt was, I believe he's one of like 10 2,000 point scorers in Pennsylvania high school history. And then he gets to the league and it's just like, you're just a guy, dude. So getting to that level is way more difficult than I think people realize.
Very difficult. Very difficult. Well, we got to the level of podcasting about the Sixers. It's kind of difficult.
It is. It has been surprisingly difficult
throughout the week. Yeah, and the first half of the season. But here we are at the All-Star break. We hope you guys enjoy your weekend. We hope you are having and had a great, great Parade Friday. You all earned it. You all earned it. And that's why for our world famous roll call, Kyle's going to tell you who the roll call recipients are.
That is the entire city of Philadelphia. I'm assuming 1 million+ people who are at the parade today. My big message to everyone who's still out and about, who was partying today, please be safe. Take public transportation if you're drinking and whatnot. just take care of yourselves, take care of other people, and above all else, go Birds.
Roll call also for the Philadelphia Eagles, the Birds.
That's right.
They get a roll call.
They do get a roll call
themselves too. So for everybody, we appreciate it. Well, you got to do your like and subscribe.
Got to hit the subscribe button. Of course, hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live. We're building up a bigger subscriber base each and every day, brick by brick, thanks to all of you. Some of you are starting to listen to me when I tell you to subscribe to the channel. And I know some of you are listening when I say hit that thumbs up button so we can get the proper amount of respect and love for our super producer, Bree, making it all happen each and every day. Thank you guys for being here. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy some time off from the Sixers and for also, a couple of days.
Our presenting sponsor, as always, Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment's never ordinary at Bet365. All right. We'll see you guys on Monday at 3 o'clock all week. 3 o'clock all week? Or when do they come back on the floor?
I think there might be a game at the end of the week.
At the 20th.
That's Thursday,
That's
right?
Thursday. So we'll be back Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 3 o'clock. And we'll see you then.
And then we're subjected to Sixers basketball once again.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Be safe out there. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.